Welcome to the quantum signal. Ignore this message and nothing will happen. But if you stay, just for a moment, you may realize that reality has already paused to see whether you are watching back. This is not motivation, not belief, and not manifestation the way you were taught. This is a live quantum observation, and the instant you become aware of it, the experiment changes. Somewhere beneath your thoughts, beneath your name, beneath the identity you protect every day, something ancient is responding right now. The question is not whether this signal is real, the question is whether you are still unconscious while it's happening. Before we go any further, pause for 1 second. If you can feel this signal, even slightly, like this video to anchor it, comment to activate your observer state, and subscribe to stay aligned with what's unfolding. This isn't support, it's synchronization. Ignore this quantum signal, and you miss the discovery that changes everything, not because something outside of you disappears, but because the door inside you quietly closes and seals itself with the familiar noise of distraction, doubt, and the old identity you were trained to protect. This message is not arriving randomly, and it is not here to convince you of anything. It is here because at some level beyond language, beyond belief, and beyond fear, you have already stepped close enough to the edge of the quantum field to feel it watching you back. Ancient wisdom spoke of this moment long before modern physics tried to measure it, and Thoth's teachings whisper the same truth the quantum field now confirms. Reality does not move first. You do. The world you experience is not a fixed structure, but a living mirror that bends around the quality of your attention, and most humans never discover this because they remain trapped inside the 3D identity program, a loop of reactions, labels, memories, and fears that feels personal but is actually mechanical. This program convinces you that you are a body moving through time, chasing outcomes, defending an ego, and surviving in a hostile universe. Yet the quantum observation reveals something far more unsettling and far more powerful. You are the observer through which the universe becomes real. When attention collapses a wave into form, it is not merely a particle responding, it is consciousness choosing an experience. And this choice happens before thought, before emotion, before logic. The quantum void is not empty space, it is pure potential, a silent field of infinite probabilities waiting for a stable observer to enter without judgment, without expectation, and without the noise of the false self. Most people cannot remain there because the ego panics in silence. It needs stories, identities, and problems to solve, and so it pulls attention back into the known, into repetition, into the illusion of control. But if you remain here, even briefly, something begins to dissolve. The false self loosens its grip, not through force, but through irrelevance. You realize that fear is not an enemy, but a signal that attention has collapsed into the past or projected into the future, and the moment attention returns to the present observer state, fear loses its authority. This is the single eye of perception spoken of in ancient texts, the focused awareness that does not scatter itself across endless thoughts, but rests calmly at the center, seeing without interference. When this eye opens, you stop reacting to reality and start co-creating with it, because reaction belongs to the program, while observation belongs to the creator. Energetic clearing does not require struggle or resistance. It happens naturally when awareness becomes stable enough that old patterns can no longer feed on unconscious attention. Programs dissolve when they are seen clearly, and emotions release when they are felt without identification. This is why the quantum field responds not to desire, but to coherence. Wanting implies lack, but observing implies presence, and presence is the signal the universe recognizes. Thoth called this alignment the key to the inner chambers, where vibration and form obey consciousness rather than habit. In this space, manifestation is not an effort, it is a side effect of clarity. You are no longer asking reality to change, you are changing the frequency through which reality expresses itself. The greatest deception of the 3D identity program is convincing you that power is external, that permission must be granted, that truth must be proven, and that awakening is something earned over time. The quantum observation dismantles this instantly, revealing that power was never lost, only misdirected. Attention is currency in the quantum field, and wherever it flows, reality follows. When attention is fragmented, life feels chaotic. When attention is unified, reality organizes itself with precision that feels miraculous but is simply natural law. This transmission is not here to excite your mind, it is here to still it. If you can remain present long enough to feel the silence behind these words, you may notice a subtle shift, a loosening, a sense that something ancient inside you recognizes this space as home. That recognition is the awakening transmission activating, not as belief but as remembrance. The observer state is not above life, it is within it, watching thoughts arise, emotions pass, and circumstances shift without losing center. From here, co-creation becomes effortless because resistance has ended. You are no longer trying to escape the world or dominate it, you are resonating with it. Infinite possibilities do not exist somewhere else. They exist here, now, in the moment attention becomes clear. Ignore this signal, and nothing dramatic happens. Life continues as usual, predictable, repetitive, familiar. But observe it, even briefly, and the trajectory changes quietly, irreversibly, because once you know you are the observer, you can never fully believe you are. The program again. This is the discovery that changes everything, not by adding something new to you, but by removing what never belonged, leaving only awareness, choice, and the silent power to shape reality from the inside out. Once the observer has remembered itself, the next threshold appears not as a dramatic event, but as an invitation into stillness, and this is where most turn back, because the quantum void does not reward curiosity the way the mind expects. It dissolves it. The void is not darkness, emptiness, or nothingness. It is the womb of all form, the pre-physical intelligence from which every experience emerges before it is named, measured, or judged. Thoth spoke of this realm as the silent chamber where vibration is born, and modern quantum science circles the same truth without fully touching it. Nothing becomes something only when it is observed with coherence. Fear arises here because the 3D identity program interprets silence as danger. It has learned to survive through noise, thoughts, plans, worries, and memories, and when these fall away, it feels as though it is dying. In a sense, it is. But what dissolves is not you, it is the false structure that mistook itself for you. The ego was never meant to lead consciousness, only to navigate the physical plane once consciousness is stable. When it takes control, it fragments attention, pulling awareness into regret and anticipation, creating time loops that drain energy and obscure power. Entering the quantum void requires no force, no technique, and no struggle. It requires allowing attention to rest without grasping. This is why the single eye of perception is essential. When attention is divided, reality appears hostile and unpredictable. When attention is unified, reality becomes responsive and intelligent. In the void, you begin to notice that thoughts arise on their own, like particles flashing into existence, and dissolve when not fed. Emotions surface the same way, not as enemies, but as stored vibrations seeking release through awareness. Energetic clearing happens here automatically, not because you are trying to heal, but because you are no longer resisting what is present. Resistance collapses potential into limitation, while acceptance opens probability into flow. This is the quantum principle hidden in plain sight. The field responds to neutrality faster than desire. Desire contains tension, but neutrality contains clarity. When you observe without attachment, the field reorganizes around coherence, aligning circumstances, encounters, and opportunities in ways that appear improbable to the analytical mind. The void teaches you that you do not manifest by thinking harder, visualizing longer, or believing more intensely. You manifest by stabilizing your frequency so completely that the field has no choice but to reflect it. This is why so many practices fail. They attempt to change reality while leaving the observer fragmented. But once the observer is whole, reality follows naturally. As you remain here, you may feel waves of discomfort, memories resurfacing, old identities whispering for attention. This is not regression, it is recalibration. The nervous system is learning a new baseline, one where presence replaces vigilance and awareness replaces control. Thoth described this as shedding the skins of the lower self, not through rejection but through illumination. What is seen clearly cannot remain hidden, and what cannot hide cannot bind you. The quantum void is where timelines loosen, where the grip of the past weakens, and where the future stops demanding obedience. Time itself begins to feel less linear, more fluid, because attention is no longer anchored to sequence but to presence. From here, co-creation becomes subtle. You are not commanding the universe, you are conversing with it. Signals move both ways. Your internal state informs the field, and the field responds with feedback that guides you, not through words, but through synchronicity. Intuition and sudden clarity. This is why awakening feels lonely at first, not because you are disconnected, but because you are no longer resonating with unconscious patterns. Yet this solitude is temporary, a passage rather than a destination. As your frequency stabilizes, new alignments appear effortlessly, drawn not by need but by resonance. The void is not passive, it is exquisitely alive, listening at all times. Every moment you remain present strengthens your signal, refining the way reality interacts with you. The observer state becomes familiar, even comforting, and fear loses its intensity because it can no longer anchor itself to a story. You realize that power does not announce itself. It operates quietly, precisely, and without drama. This chapter is not about achieving enlightenment or escaping the world. It is about inhabiting reality fully without being consumed by it. When you can enter the quantum void without fear, you carry it back into form, into action, into choice. Life does not disappear, it becomes responsive. And from this space, the next revelation begins to emerge, that creation is not something you do occasionally, but something you are doing continuously, whether consciously or not, once. The quantum void no longer feels foreign. A deeper challenge emerges, one that is subtler than fear and far more deceptive: instability of attention. Many can touch the observer state briefly, experience flashes of clarity, synchronicities, or inner silence, and then fall back into the familiar gravity of the 3D identity program without realizing why. This happens because awakening is not sealed by insight alone, it is stabilized by consistency. The observer must become the default position, not an occasional retreat. Thoth warned that knowledge without stabilization becomes distortion, because the mind tries to own what only awareness can hold. When attention flickers between presence and identification, reality mirrors that inconsistency with mixed results, moments of flow followed by confusion, breakthroughs followed by collapse. This is not punishment or failure, it is feedback from the quantum field, showing you exactly how stable your signal truly is. The single eye of perception is trained here, not through strain, but through gentle return. Each time attention wanders into thought, story, or emotional contraction, it is simply brought back to observation without judgment. Judgment fractures coherence, while neutrality restores it. Over time, this return becomes effortless, like gravity reversing direction. Instead of being pulled into reaction, attention settles naturally into awareness, and from this state, reality begins to reorganize itself in real time. You may notice that situations which once triggered anxiety no longer hook you, not because you are detached or numb, but because you are no longer personalizing the field's movements. Events happen, sensations arise, choices appear, yet something within you remains untouched, steady, clear. This is the stabilized observer, and it is here that conscious creation becomes precise rather than chaotic. The universe responds to clarity faster than intention, and clarity is the byproduct of sustained, Observation. When your internal state is coherent, the quantum field does not need instructions, it reads your frequency directly. This is why words, affirmations, and rituals are secondary at best. They are training wheels, not the vehicle. The true mechanism of creation is alignment between awareness and vibration, and this alignment cannot be faked. The field is exquisitely honest. It reflects not what you say you want, but what you are consistently being. As the observer stabilizes, the illusion of separation weakens. You begin to sense that reality is not happening to you, but through you. Decisions feel less forced, timing becomes intuitive, and effort gives way to precision. This does not mean life becomes passive, action still occurs, but it arises from clarity rather than compulsion. You are no longer chasing outcomes, you are responding to signals. Thoth described this as moving with the currents rather than against them, a state where will and flow are no longer opposites, but extensions of the same intelligence. Old identities may resurface here with surprising strength, attempting to reclaim attention by reminding you who you used to be, what you should fear, or what you must protect. This is the final defense of the 3D program, not because it is evil, but because it was designed to survive, not to awaken. Its language is urgency, comparison, and scarcity, but once seen, it loses authority. You no longer argue with it, you observe it, and observation dissolves it. Energetic clearing at this stage becomes almost invisible. Patterns fall away without drama, habits lose their charge, and emotional reactions shorten until they barely register. This is not suppression, it is integration. The nervous system recalibrates to a higher baseline of safety, allowing creativity, intuition, and perception to expand naturally. You may begin to notice subtle shifts in how others respond to you, not because you are trying to influence them, but because coherence is contagious. The quantum field does not isolate signals, it harmonizes them. As your frequency stabilizes, it entrains the environment around you, creating pockets of order within apparent chaos. This is how awakened observers change the world without fighting it, not through resistance, but through resonance. Time itself responds differently here. Delays shorten, opportunities align, and outcomes unfold with an uncanny sense of rightness. This is not luck, it is synchronization. The observer state collapses unnecessary timelines, selecting paths with minimal friction. And yet, this power does not inflate the ego, because the ego is no longer driving. Humility emerges naturally, not as submission, but as clarity. You see that you are not separate from the field you are shaping. Creator and creation are two angles of the same movement. This is the point where awakening stops being about you and starts being about participation. You are no longer trying to escape the world or transcend it. You are inhabiting it fully, consciously, responsibly. The stabilized observer understands that every moment is an act of creation, whether noticed or not, and this understanding changes how you live, how you choose, and how you listen. The discovery hinted at in the beginning is no longer theoretical, it is embodied. You are not waiting for reality to change, you are witnessing it respond, moment by moment, to the clarity you sustain. And once this stabilization occurs, there is no going back to unconsciousness, only deeper refinement, deeper alignment, and the quiet certainty that you are exactly where creation happens. When the observer is stabilized, and creation begins responding with precision, a final realization settles in, not as excitement, but as responsibility, and this is where true mastery quietly begins. You understand now that you are not merely receiving signals from the quantum field, you are emitting one constantly. Every thought you linger in, every emotion you identify with, every assumption you carry without questioning is broadcasting information into the field, and the field, indifferent yet perfectly intelligent, reflects it back as experience. This is why unconscious creators feel trapped in cycles, while conscious observers experience evolution. Living as the signal means you stop asking, "What will happen to me?" and begin asking, "What am I transmitting right now?" This shift ends victimhood at the root, not by denial, but by clarity. Thoth's wisdom emphasized this stage above all others, warning that power without awareness becomes distortion, and awareness without embodiment becomes escape. To live as the signal is to walk in the world while remaining rooted in the observer state, allowing form and action to arise from coherence rather than compulsion. You begin to notice that words carry weight beyond their meaning, that presence communicates louder than intention, and that silence can rearrange a room more effectively than force. The 3D identity program still exists, but it no longer defines you. It becomes a tool, activated when needed and released when not. Fear may still appear, but it no longer commands behavior. Desire may still arise, but it no longer dictates worth. You recognize emotions as energy moving through awareness rather than evidence of truth. This recognition changes how you relate to challenges. Problems stop feeling personal and start feeling informational, signals from the field showing where coherence is slipping or attention is fragmenting. Correction becomes simple. Return to observation, restore neutrality, and allow alignment to re-establish itself. Energetic clearing at this level is instantaneous because nothing is being held long enough to crystallize into pattern. The body responds too, relaxing into a deeper sense of safety, as if it finally trusts the intelligence guiding it. From here, conscious creation becomes subtle and ethical. You no longer attempt to bend reality to your will because you understand that bending implies resistance. Instead, you refine your internal state so precisely that the desired outcome is the most natural expression available to the field. This is co-creation in its purest form, a dialogue between awareness and probability. Synchronicities increase not as spectacle, but as confirmation. You meet the right people without searching, opportunities appear without strain, and decisions reveal themselves without anxiety. Life feels guided, yet not controlled, free, yet not chaotic. The illusion of separation dissolves further here, replaced by a quiet intimacy with existence itself. You feel woven into the movement of events rather than standing apart from them. This does not make you passive, it makes you precise. Action taken from coherence carries exponential impact, while action taken from fragmentation drains energy without result. You begin to see how entire civilizations operate from unconscious signals, fear, scarcity, dominance, and how easily those signals perpetuate themselves. But instead of resisting or judging, you recognize your role to embody an alternative frequency so stable that it introduces new possibilities into the field. This is how change actually occurs, not through force, but through example. The observer who lives as the signal becomes a node of coherence, subtly influencing systems simply by existing in alignment. Thoth referred to these individuals as anchors, consciousness points through which higher order could enter lower density experience. You may never be recognized for this, and recognition no longer matters. The reward is internal, a sense of rightness, of alignment, of being exactly where you are meant to be. Time feels generous here. Urgency dissolves, even effort changes quality, becoming focused rather than exhausting. You are no longer trying to arrive somewhere else, you are participating fully in where you are. This is the paradox of the quantum field, the moment you stop. Seeking outcomes. Outcomes organize themselves. The moment you stop chasing meaning, meaning reveals itself everywhere. Living as the signal does not remove uncertainty, it transforms your relationship to it. The unknown stops being threatening and starts being fertile. Each moment becomes a doorway rather than an obstacle. And this is the final discovery hidden within the signal you chose not to ignore, that awakening is not an escape from life, but a deeper entry into it. Where awareness leads, reality responds, and creation unfolds as a continuous, conscious conversation between you and the infinite field you were never separate from. Now here's the question for you. What part of the country are you watching this story from? Drop your state in the comments below.